G'day, g'day, new day, back at it again, working on the CanAm 6. Front axle's off. Got the other side yet to do. Fella spent hundreds of dollars at the CanAm dealer. New axles, complete units, and they didn't include the little dust shield. Come on, CanAm, you can do better than that. So now I got to try to get those off without destroying them. Well, at least without the dust shields, it's easier to get the brake on. I don't got to go down, I can just go over. Same thing, a little bit of blue Loctite. There are brake parts. Is it in yet? I always like to check them. It's cooperating. Just enough heat to not burn my fingies. Socket near big enough to put that on, so we're just gonna go gentle and tappy. Persuadertron 3000. Woo! One ready to go on. Okay, step one of the assembly, we're gonna put the little drive axle back in. Okay, the first thing I did here was pull back the rubber boot and just hammer that with grease, because that sits in the end of the differential here. There's no way to grease it up once it's there. Okay, so she's coated in all kinds of fresh grease. The universal's pre-packed, okay, and there's no grease fittings on this one. And the last thing is this end simply slides over the shaft, the output shaft on the engine, and it's all held in with one little bolt. Last thing you do is once you get your boot over, and the boot has a little lip on the inside that goes over a groove here. Okay, so you gotta make sure it's in part, and then you just use some pliers, squeeze that together, and clamp it all in so the grease can't escape and nothing can get in there. Need my eyes. Okay, so the axle just kinda line up some teeth. Slide that sucker in as far as she'll go. And curse yourself for a fool for believing for a second that you didn't have to pull that differential. Okay, so a little wrestling and some finagling. What I ended up having to do, take the front motor mount bolt out, which is right there, and the back one, which is right here. And by doing that, I was able to get that 1/8 of an inch that I needed for that shaft to go into place. You're going to start your bolt in there, which is no treat to get in either. 13mm ratchet wrench is a godsend for this job here. I mean, you could get in here with a regular wrench, but you'd be a while. All right, once you get close, this thing does not like to go apart. There we go. That thing will probably never come out of there again. Okay, last step, the little clamp here that holds the boot into place. Okay, and you just use band clamp pliers on that. If you don't have them, well, a different set of pliers will do the job. Now let's put our motor mount back in. What a difference though. Okay, ready to put the axles back in it here. When it comes to the axles, there is a left and a right, okay? The shorty goes on the left side, so like that. Big long one is the right side. All you gotta do here, move your shock out of your way, lift up your control arm as high as you can, slide it into the hole, line up your gears. And this was always a bit of a pain because it's so long. Okay, a little bit of a love tap helps. And there you go. Okay, and the biggest problem there is the control arm is pushing down on the brake disc. So you're constantly having to fight it. So just gentle, you don't gotta beat on it. And once it's in, that clip is pulled. If I yank on it, it will come out, but you just wanna make sure it's in. All right, and now we get to put the rest of it back on. Okay, the brakes. The easiest way to put them on is to push the piston back in. To do that, we're just gonna use a pair of vice grips here because these ain't very hard, not like a car. You can use that. A lot of times I'll use a C-clamp, and I actually have the tool, but that's in the other workshop. I just don't feel like running out in the rain to get it. You don't gotta go crazy. So they're gonna go back in like that with the top part up. The hook one is outside. All right, and you're gonna slide those suckers in. Unless one falls out on you. Goes in a heck of a lot easier than it came out. Pin part here is on the front. Just a couple of turns. And while holding your brakes, slide in your pins. Sometimes the back pad gets a little bit finicky and you got to reach in there with your finger and just move it up into place. And that's all there is to that. It's the boss. The boss is coming. The boss has gone for a ride on Polaris. She must have put 4,000 kilometers on that thing this year and never left the farm. Pins are tight. We're gonna tighten up our bolt here in the back, 12 millimeter. Okay, there's the bolt we're threading in. There's a pin that's in this part of the, you can see there's a 12 millimeter part right here, and it just kind of squeezes back in here and allows the caliper to move when you pressure brakes. That way you get even pressure on both pads. All right, and the last thing for the brake is this pin that screws on. And this is the one that has, it's not a round hole, it's a semicircle with a flat part. And the flat part, while you're screwing it, you may have noticed that the pin was rotating at first. So I pull it towards me and just turn it and wiggle it at the same time, and that pin will go into this housing right here. You'll know what's in. It'll make a clunk and it'll move a bit. And if it's not in, when you go to tighten, this is just going to keep spinning. Okay, so there's our brake on. Rolling just fine. Okay, so when it comes to doing your spindle, put your shock in loosely. Don't tighten it up, don't put your bolt in. Push up, and then you can start your bottom. Okay. Nothing to it. Now the top one, it's tapered. So if you're not pushing down here, it's kind of squeezing this joint together. When you start that nut, if it's tight, the ball joint is just going to rotate. So you got to kind of put your knee under it or whatever. You can use a strap, some sort of mechanical device, whatever you've got in mind, and then you can start your nut on it. Now if it's finger tight like this, you're okay, but if it tightens up, it'll start to spin like that. Okay, so I'm pushing up real good with my knee and go the rest of the way. Come on. And you don't gotta go nuts. There's a cotter pin gonna go in there. The bottom one is a bolt. Okay, so for that bottom one, there's a slot in the ball joint. It's got like a cutout around it. So what you have to do is kind of line up your bolt with that. If it's in too far or not far enough, you're going to have some grief. So you don't want to pound it until you check that it's lined up. And that's a little too high. I actually want to go down just a hair. Right there. Okay. Again, if you push it in all the way, you're never going to get that bolt in without tearing the threads up. So be a little bit patient and line it up. Shock goes in next. There's no pressure on your suspension until you put your shock on, so you got room to wiggle. Bolt from the front. Simple as that. And that. Same procedure. This one's really difficult to get. What I did when I took it off is I put a ratchet with another socket over here because you can't really get a wrench on. It won't fit a combination. You can't get a wrench straight. Okay. As soon as it sucks in there, it goes into the aluminum housing. So you just gotta get it to bite. Okay, hub next. Make sure there's no debris in there, because there's no master key here, so you just line up your little hoo-haws, and big thick washer, castle nut. That's the only nut on this thing that's ever gone in finger tight the whole way. I don't like to put cotter pins in any longer than they need to be. Cotter pin. One side done. Let's go to the other side. Okay, we're gonna work at getting that ball joint out now. I already removed the C-clip using the old C-clip pliers. And this is one of those ones that you have to push down. So basically the C-clip is what's holding it in. One trick I've learned over the years, no matter how clean you think this is, take a file and just go around the outside top here, the part that you got to push through. You never know what burrs or rust it's going to do, and then just make your life much more complicated than it needs to be. You could beat that out with a hammer. You could use different types of tools. I've got an actual big bad boy here that I use. This set comes with all kinds of different fittings for just about anything ever made. So it's a matter of finding what's going to work for you. We use a little hollow cup. Gives the ball joint here somewhere to go. It's going to go through the hole anyways. Bigger part is getting stuff out of the way while you get it in place. Okay, so you get the idea like that. And then we screw this guy down on top. Oh yeah, we got her now. We got her licked. Alright. When it works, there's nothing like it. It'll push out a ball joint every time and it installs them. You can do universal joints, the works. So there you go. One time's bad ball joint. Parts finally came in. We bought a quad boss. Ooh.
Shiny.
It is shiny. I got my daughter out here today learning the job. She should be doing this. So your upper ball joint, we push the old one out. The new one just goes in from the bottom. So we go back to our handy dandy tool. There we go.
Yay.
That held up so I don't need octopus hands. Okay, so how this is going to work, we're going to use our C-clamp to push the ball joint in. All right, but as you can see, this doesn't fit through this hole. So I need a spacer up here capable of absorbing the space of the ball joint. That's what this piece does. So that'll sit centered roughly over the hole. It's big enough on this that it won't be an issue. An 1¼ inch socket is about the perfect tool for this on this particular machine. Doesn't take a whole lot of force. As long as it's going in straight, you just keep going. There you go. And that's all there is to putting in your ball joint. Okay, so the next thing, we got another one of our favorite little clips, and of course my pliers are back over there again. I need, what's those things they hit the hippies drive?
Oh, the little scooters? I can't
remember. Segway.
Oh yeah, that's what it's called.
I need one of them bloody Segways for this shop now. One problem with this nice big shop, now it's so big. I'm getting my steps in all right every day.
If you had a Fitbit, oh god.
Okay. Simple as that. Ball joint's now in. There's no grease fitting on it. They come pre-greased. So we're good. We can now put our steering knuckle on, which we never did separate from the tie rod end because, well, you don't need to. Axle goes through the wheel bearing. Alright. Line up the bottom. And before you put the top in, put your shock back in the hole. If you got to hit this bolt, okay, a tap is one thing, but if you got to come onto that bolt, you're either too high or too low on your steering knuckle down here. So have a look before you try to smash it into non-existence. Yep. So once you got her like that, give her, line it up, tap it a couple times. That way your taper will go in where it's supposed to be. And you can go ahead and throw your castle nut on. Okay, you can put your shock bolt back in. That one just needs a little gentle persuadatron. There you go. There's a cotter pin. Spindle back on.
The dead end?
Baling twine out of there. As I said, gets into everything. There's no master key, so it goes on any which way. Got a big thick washer. And then your castle nut. And of course, you buy the axle, the CV axle, but they don't give you a new castle nut for the end. I don't get that. Okay, with that said and done, all of our suspension work is now complete. The system is super, super tight. There's like very little slack in this, and that's what's in the differential, which is normal. You're going to have a little backlash there. No slack in the front or back drive lines. We're rocking. He's going to be thrilled with this setup, way better than when it came in here.